Okay, Jane, are we ready? Okay. Good morning. Today is Wednesday, February 8th, 2023, and we'd like to welcome everyone to the board meeting. We'll call this meeting to order at 9 a.m. You can join today's board meeting via phone. Dial 971-254-3149, conference ID 736-023-979#. Audio capabilities are listen only and are offered on a best effort for the public. Our meeting is also live streamed, and you can join us by going online to tctvonline.com and click on live broadcasts. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to mute their phone. You can do this by pressing *6. Please unmute your phone when your agenda item is ready to be discussed. For those joining via computer, please unmute your microphone and turn on your camera when your agenda item is called. All others must remain muted with their cameras turned off. Thank you. Public comment. Those intending to provide public comment to the board may attend in person or email submissions to publiccomments@co.tillamook.or.us. Public comments received by 12 p.m. on Tuesday will be distributed to the board, posted online before the meeting, and become part of the public record. You may also provide public comment virtually by registering ahead of time. To register, please email publiccomments@co.tillamook.or.us by 12 p.m. on the Tuesday prior to the board meeting. Public comments can also be mailed to the Board of Commissioners Office, 201 Laurel Avenue, Tillamook, Oregon, 97141. For more information on public comment options, please visit the Board of Commissioners webpage. Do we have anyone signed up in the room, or has anyone registered online for public comment?
No.
No. Okay, great. Well, anyone who is in the room, we still invite you to please sign the guest list so that we have a record of who was with us today. With that, we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Yamamoto, will you lead us, please?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, since we have no public comment today and no non-agenda items today, we will move right into our first item, which is a presentation. We have the Recycling Modernization Act opportunity in Tillamook County. We have David McCall, our Solid Waste Program Manager from Public Works, with us to speak with us today. Good morning, David.
Yes, good morning. So, commissioners and community, so a little bit of background as to how we're getting to the situation that we'll have a community meeting on next week, on Tuesday. So I'll say that right at the beginning. Next week, Tuesday, Valentine's Day, Oregon's birthday, 2:30 in the afternoon. Please show your love for recycling in the state of Oregon by coming to this community meeting we will be having at the PRI, the Partnership for Rural Innovations building, on 3rd Street, starting at 2:30. So, background. Oregonians love to recycle. We all know that. Oregon is recycling state of the world, capital. But a lot of the recycling that happened was being shipped overseas. There are various reasons for that. And China was the main buyer of these recycling materials. And unfortunately, there was lots of contamination in these materials. And China kept saying, please cut back on the contamination, don't send us the junk, we don't want this and that, please stop this. And we were incapable of doing that. And it all resulted in a what's called the Chinese green fence that hit us in November of 2017.
This is what's going
basically
down.
changing the way that we recycle or can recycle. It didn't necessarily impact Tillamook County a lot because what we collect is source separated materials. We send them directly to markets. We were not exporting anything. But because large markets like Portland, and the Valley, and Seattle, and California were no longer able to ship their contaminated materials to China, they were searching for other markets, including domestic markets, and the markets basically fell into a free fall. It was close to collapse. We had to cut back on some of the things we did here, but not drastically. But the state, actually through the Department of Environmental Equality, said, we can't just let this die. And they put together a whole bunch of work groups, a whole bunch of committees, had thousands of hours of meetings with various experts and community leaders, and then trying to figure out what to do, how we can do things better. This all culminated in 2021 with the passage of the Recycling Modernization Act, which has as its goal, as of July 1st, 2025, to have a standard recycling system throughout the state of Oregon, so that it doesn't matter if you are in Tillamook or Bay City or Banks, Burns or Beaverton, the exact same things can be recycled. You can put the same things in your recycling carts. You know that the things you put in recycling carts are going to be sent to responsible markets, not just shipped off somewhere where they get burnt or who knows what happens. But setting up this whole system that's the same throughout the state, or the same list of materials, and making sure it works properly. Now, like I said, this is 2025. We're at the beginning of 2023 now. What they've done is, through the RMA, the Recycling Modernization Act, they've set up a hybrid extended producer responsibility system, which local communities and the manufacturers will work together through what's called PROs, Producer Responsibility Organizations. These organizations are going to be responsible for making sure that the materials we collect actually get to responsible markets, and those responsible markets are sustainable. So let me give you an example right now. We collect glass. Glass is one of the greatest recycling materials of all time. It can be recycled over and over and over and over again without losing any of its basic qualities. The place where we can recycle this glass in this area is important. We collect glass, we ship it to Portland, we drop it off there. We don't pay anything, we don't get paid anything. But we have to cover our transportation costs. So it's a money loser for us. It used to be a break-even item, now it's a money loser. We still do it because it's the right thing to do. Under this new system, it's our responsibility to collect the material, but because we're more than 50 miles away from the recycling plant, the PRO would cover our transportation costs to get it to there. And if the glass recycling facility would pay for materials, can be glass, can be cardboard, for example. We ship our cardboard to Toledo. They pay for that. If they pay for that, that's great. But if they would go and start charging for materials, the PRO would be responsible to making sure it doesn't cost us anything. So we collect, and from that point, we can make some money off of it, or in the worst case scenario, it doesn't cost us anything to turn it over. The shipping, hauling, and processing would all be covered. Now, as part of this process, because as I said, it's Oregon, but there's a difference. Bay City, Banks, Beaverton, and Burns are not on the same system right now. The state, we have to figure out how we get to the state. So right now, we are organizing this community meeting to discuss the needs assessment. So the state has sent out a survey to the cities and the county, asking them to answer some questions in which we say what we want to do or what we need to do to bring ourselves up to this level statewide. Each city must complete this, and the county must complete it. However we complete it is up to us. If a city says, we don't need anything, then fine, they don't need anything. But this is our opportunity to say what we need. And come 2025, the PROs will be paying for those infrastructure investments so that we can meet that minimum level of service in Tillamook County and in each city. So this is the first of many meetings we'll be having, but this is the meeting where we're trying to coordinate our response so that all the cities in the county are singing the exact same tune. We're sending the same message, what we need to reach this level. I'll tell you, I've been in the business for 29 years. This is the first time I have seen an opportunity like this. This much money will be made available for infrastructure to bring us to a standard level of business. It's an incredible opportunity, but we need to take advantage of the opportunity in the right way, in my opinion. Because if we send mixed messages, it just creates chaos. If we don't ask for things now, we will not be part of the funding opportunity. The next time they do a needs assessment won't be until 2027. So if we don't ask now, we have to wait until 2027 to ask. And just as Linda notes, it's a complex formula. I know the commissioner likes to say how the sausage is made. I don't like that term. I like to say it's more like how a symphony is put together. We're bringing the musicians together. We don't yet know what song we're going to be putting together. We don't know who's playing what. We want to make sure that we're all putting together street music in the same way, and it comes out like a great symphony piece. But to do that, we've got to coordinate our responses. And that's what we're looking to do now. If the cities want something the county doesn't know about it, we can't upgrade our infrastructure to accommodate that. And the same thing works the other way. There's no reason for us to upgrade certain infrastructure if the cities don't want to utilize that. So that's what we're hosting, this community meeting on the 14th, 2:30 at the PRI building. It's across from the old college building, or the new old college building on 3rd Street. And this is open to anybody. So we encourage, because we have so much of our population lives in unincorporated areas. Please come, share your ideas, share your thoughts, what we need, what do we want to do to bring us, or what do we need to do to bring us up to that level, so that every place in Tillamook County can have a proper and adequate level of recycling, just like everywhere else in the state.
Wow, that's, yeah, thank you, it's an exciting opportunity. I think maybe we were having some technical difficulties, and I may have missed this piece, but the PRO, where's the funding coming from?
So the PRO is a nonprofit put together by the manufacturers. So
Okay.
any manufacturer of packaging materials, I forget exactly what they call it in our terms in the Oregon system, but it's basically, so packaging and producer information papers, so, newsletters and maybe newspapers, I'm not sure, but ads. It's geared towards ads. Producers that make ads, magazines full of ads and things like that. And disposable serviceware. Those are the Oregon things. All the producers of these are required to pay into a PRO, which will be formed by them.
Uh-huh.
And they pay into that based on what they do. Coca-Cola has, I don't know how many tons of plastic, how many tons of metal, how many tons of wood, for their pallets, how many tons of cardboard. Based on that, they pay into the PRO, and the PRO goes out and makes everything happen. They finance that, so they've got to get this together. The PRO would be contacting us to say, okay, you said you need trucks for collection. How many collection trucks do you need? And if we say we need 27 collection trucks, they're probably going to say, I don't know, that's a little shaky, justify that. And when we wind up in the end, we say we need, 4 or 5, $250,000 a piece. Okay, how are we gonna pay that $1 million for those trucks? That goes into their budget, and the PROs then figure out, Tillamook County needs, $1.8 million for these different things. Yamhill County needs so much money, this other county needs so much money, how much that is. So then that's how they set their rates and their fees. They go back to Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola and every other manufacturer and say, this is how much you need to pay in the system. And it's not just for the infrastructure, it's always to make sure that Tillamook County's glass gets hauled to Portland at their expense, not our expense. Basically, it's making end-of-life responsibility. So when they produce something, it's not only producing on the front end, but they're taking responsibility for it at the end of life. That's extended producer responsibility. Keep an eye on things downstairs. And in most places, this would be for the entire life cycle. Oregon's doing it, like I said, this hybrid system. So the hybrid part is, it's the local governments, local jurisdictions that are responsible for the collection arm of it. After collection is when the PROs take over. So they're not footing the whole bill.
Interesting. Okay, I have more questions, but commissioners, I'll open it up to you all, and I'll wrap up with mine.
Oh, I just think this is an exciting opportunity, and I imagine that the public doesn't know how the county invests in our facilities. We invest in our recycling facilities, we invest in our solid waste facilities because we have to. And so the idea that in fact the responsible parties are the producers of that waste material is wonderful. You know, how often does the right thing happen in that way? So, and to have the opportunity to get infrastructure dollars for our facilities, I think it's very exciting. I hope everybody will come to this meeting, that people, representatives from the unincorporated areas, from cities, and interested citizens. There are a lot of people in Tillamook County who care about recycling, so I hope you'll all come out for this meeting.
Thank you.
And I agree. People in Tillamook County do recycle, even though it's more difficult in Tillamook County than in Beaverton, or even Banks probably, where you have curbside pickup of recycles. And yet in Tillamook County with our transit stations, I mean, it's a perfect opportunity, and people do take advantage of that. So we appreciate that very much. I am hoping, for one thing, David, I'm hoping that this opportunity comes with one of those recycling jackets that you're wearing.
I don't know, they were limited production,
Limited
so.
production? All right, well, I understand that, I do. So again, you're doing a great job there, David, and I mean, we need to give the people of Tillamook County every opportunity to recycle, and we'll get even more recycling done in this county as we move forward. So thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a great opportunity. I think I'll probably just reach out to you offline, since unfortunately as county commissioners, we will all be out of the area next week when this meeting occurs for the National Association of Counties Conference. So I won't be able to come and ask my questions there. I'm just super curious how that whole system works, and yeah, because I love the idea, I love the concept, and having lived in the unincorporated county for the majority of my 20 years here, we had to haul all of our recyclables to the transfer station, and so I'm hoping this means then for those folks in unincorporated county, they will ultimately be able to get a recycle bin and have pickup. So that's really exciting, because it is a challenging extra piece of work, even being a very small home. So finding a place to stockpile everything until we were able to make a trip to the transfer station. So just a lot of pieces to that are very exciting. So I agree, I share with my fellow commissioners the hope that people will come out and really talk about what the needs they see as residents of our county are, as well as residents of our cities. This is a great opportunity for us to do what we do well in Tillamook County, which is to coordinate with one another, create systems, and in this case, get in line for the money that will make that system a reality. So thank you, David, that's very exciting.
Just bring up one extra aspect, which I forgot to bring up with it, but behind EPR, part of the thinking is it's an incentive for manufacturers to do the right thing. And, you know, the Europeans started this in the early 90s. You know, they've got plenty of history with it. What they found was so many of the manufacturers, I think we all know stories where you go to the grocery store and you see a box of whatever on the shelf, and the newer version has come out next to it and it's a little bit smaller. Well, what they found out is they don't need as much air in their packaging to make it look nice and fancy, so they're reducing that so they don't have to pay as much, because they pay on a per pound or a per kilo basis.
Right.
So it incentivizes them to do the right thing, and to the extent that get creative with their packaging and make it more recyclable, because that's less costly. One of the examples I use, if you buy toothpaste in the United States, it's like you've got a tube of toothpaste, and then it's in a cardboard box, and then it's in a plastic wrapping, and it's all these other. When you go to Europe, a lot of places, you have what looks like an egg carton with tubes sticking up in it.
Oh.
Because they figured out we don't need all the extra stuff, which just causes money, because people are gonna buy our toothpaste anyway. And this is just one part of the process that brings it along and brings the manufacturers into the picture of figuring out the good solution. So.
Excellent, no, I think that's fabulous. Recycling is something that, you know, we do enjoy, we do feel like it's the right thing to do, and the easier we make it, the more people will participate.
Since we won't be there on the 14th, I'd like to give you my comments. I miss being able to recycle everything, like the number 1s to 5s, and the yogurt containers, and the plastic bin things that mixed greens come in. That's my hope, that we'll get to the act of being able to recycle everything.
Most of those will be on the new list effective July 1st, 2025. A couple of them aren't, because there's not. So DEQ is putting a lot of emphasis on what's called responsible markets. Not sending materials to a place where they may create additional contamination or pollution in the process. So of the things you mentioned, I think probably the only one which is not on the new list are the clamshells, you know, the plastic clamshell like that, because there are no markets that have been identified as responsible in the western half of the United States. There are some in Mexico where there are concerns with the environmental aspects to it. But there's a process that's been put in place so that if a couple recycling facilities do open and it is deemed responsible, then those items can be added to the list. But so just save those things for a little while in your garage. You know, it's only 3 years or 2.5.
I use the plastic ones that mixed greens come in that don't have holes in them. I use them for starting seeds, and they work great for that.
See, that's a great reuse idea.
Reduce, reuse, recycle, right? So this is, you know, encouraging us to pick up that reuse piece of it, because this will hopefully reduce and recycle, but apparently some of that reuse will be on us, so. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Bill?
Fishing equipment.
No.
Sorry, we can't recycle.
Actually, it's pop cans and water bottles that I got a ton of those, and I have 2 kids in the Tillamook High School, and they'll be coming by soon because, like David mentioned, I've got a year's worth, and they're going to use them in the charity drive coming up pretty quick. So, anyway, that's my picture about those. And I think, David, there's been years past when they've come by my house and they've got metal. Are they still collecting the metal for the charity drive as well? Yeah, that's a big deal too.
I'm guessing, so charity drive starts, I think it's Friday this week. And which is there a list in the paper?
There is a list in the paper. They are doing the scrap metal and pop can this year with numbers in the paper as well.
Yeah. So that, you know, I just, that's, I save my pop cans every year for that. That's kind of a pain to take them to the store, so. it's easy for them.
You have a recommendation of which class this should be donated to?
Hey now.
Sorry,
Actually, I think pop.
Seniors.
I think pop cans. My granddaughter was telling me. I think everybody's in on the pop cans. I don't think any particular class this year has their own. Their own. I think they're all.
Just divide them up after the end of the collection.
I think so.
Well, otherwise support seniors.
Seniors.
Just lobbying.
Parents of seniors in the room.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, I was thinking senior citizens.
There's some of those in the room too, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, David. We appreciate it. We really do encourage and urge residents to attend the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to our legislative administrative agenda, starting with item number 6, which is discussion and consideration of change order number 1 to contract number 6242, prevailing wage contract for construction with Bob McEwen Construction Incorporated for the Old Wheeler Moeller Road Slide Repair Project. Chris Lady, Director of Public Works. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Commissioners. Old Wheeler Moeller it was one of our 2015-16 slides. We completed that in December of last year. We went out for competitive bids. Bob McEwen was the low bidder on that. Was awarded the contract. That work is done. Old Wheeler Moeller is essentially a cut across from Highway 101 to Highway 53. Through that process, we working with the local fire department up there, we're designated that as a fire lane. It's built to fire lane standards. The FEMA paid for essentially repair of the slides. So we, working with the fire department, we're going to gate that road, or we desire to gate that road with fire department standards using their preferred gate, using their preferred lock system. In addition to that is we have a lot of brush cleaning to do on the old road that was not reconstructed. So with this contract, we went for them for an amendment and asked for a dollar amount to install the gates and do the additional brush work on that. Certainly the gates are there. We don't really want to create a homeless camp on this road. that's intended for fire department access. So the gates, the mowing, and the brush removal, the locks that meet fire department standards is what's in front of you. The total cost of that was, by the amendment request, was $15,432.
Thank you, Chris. Questions or comments, commissioners?
I have a question. So, Chris, I'm familiar with the old Moeller Road. I've driven it, and I'm wondering, I know the intention was for it not to be a through road, but to be an emergency access fire department road. But if we're putting up gates, how are the people who live there gonna get in and out?
They come in off of Highway 53, and the old Wheeler Moeller is also a road that ties into 53. So since 2015-16, that's been the only way to get to their property. So they maintain access through there. They're just coming off of Highway 53. And I would suspect if you ask the locals, they would rather not that be a cut across road.
Oh, they've
The intersection with 101 and Old Wheeler Moeller, because of close proximity to 53, we really don't want the additional vehicles coming in and out of that. There's a little bit more of a sight distance hazard, safety issues. We'd much rather people use the ODOT intersection and then continue to come off of the Old Wheeler Moeller off of Highway 53.
Okay, thanks.
No, Chris, again, I appreciate you coordinating with Fire and Rescue in North County to get these things done, which really are important for fire and rescue issues. So your partnership in this project is terrific. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, agreed. You know, this is a good opportunity to make sure that we have a bypass. There's so many places and spaces in the county where we just don't, that we need to make sure we keep these opportunities available, and agreed, it's not something we want to have as a public access. So I am in support.
Ready for a motion, Madam Chair?
I am.
Madam Chair, in consideration of change order number 1 to contract number 6242, prevailing wage contract for construction with Bob McEwen Construction, Inc., for the old Wheeler Moeller Road slide repair project, I would move approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
And Chris had,
So
Just have one
I
more
do
item.
have one additional
Yeah.
item that I spoke with Commissioner Bell on prior to this meeting. So No Spray, the weed spray program that is out there. The last summer, we did not do any weed spraying. We actually lost our weed spraying, the one person that was doing that. And we were not able to do that. Talking to a number of other counties on what they do, a lot of them actually contract, I wouldn't say a lot, but a number of them actually contract weed spraying. And there are 3 different weed spraying outfits that are out there. When we got into the system, because we had a weed sprayer that's been doing that for over 20 years, properly licensed through the Oregon Department of Agriculture, and you actually need a special license to spray within the right-of-ways. So you can't just hire anybody to go out there and spray. What we're finding with that is there are a lot of different no spray licenses out there that are signs. They vary from cardboard signs that say no spray, plywood signs that say no spray. We're seeing some signs that look like they probably cost $1,000 for no spray. And then the old signs that the county used to put out there, they were green and they simply said N/S. When I first arrived in the county, I was like, well, why do we have signs that say north-south? Chatting with one of the farmers, we had another agency was spraying around a pole, and the farmer comes out and said, why are you spraying this? Don't you know that this is a no spray? Can't you see the sign? And the applicator looked at that and said, I thought that meant no smoking. So the green sign that says N/S was not very informative, so the people that were actually doing the work worked great for somebody who'd been doing it for 20 years, knew all the nuances. So we decided let's standardize. So we actually used Yamhill County's signs, so they're identical. Yamhill County contracts for weed spraying. So we have a lot of new signs that are ready to go out on the ground. Because it's contract spraying, the contractors, they don't know the area. So they need a consistency. They see a sign, they say, yes, this is a county designated sign, that they will go out there and spray it. Working with the Citizens Roadway Advisory Committee, as we revamp the system, they recommended we're implementing a no-fee charge for this year to get the signs installed. The agreement form is something that is almost, it's very similar. The language is near identical to what we've been using for a number of years. The format's a little different, a little bit more internally processing and provides a little bit more information. That agreement form, we don't spray every single road in the county. There's certainly we don't spray within some of the local communities, even though that they're unincorporated. But we do spray a number of roads, such as Miami Foley, such as Sand Lake, these larger runs. So with that, the agreement form that's on our website, co.tillamook.or.us under the road department link. Recommend calling the front office in Public Works and to find out some more information. If you're not sure if your road gets sprayed, it is on the website. And then also staff here is ready to answer your question. The office number is 503-842-3419. It's 842-3419. Staff here is ready to answer the questions. The foreman, we have one foreman in the North County, one foreman in the South County. They have the forms. One of the things we ran into with that is when we gave the signs out to other people, you would see signs attached to power poles. They were attached to trees. They would get brushed over. But we want these signs to be visible. So it is in that application or the agreement form is show us a map. You can meet with the staff, the road department, and talk about where you want that sign to be placed. And the road department staff, to maintain some consistency, will go out there and install it. For 2023, again, the application and the sign, the installation and the signs are free. Come next year, we'll start charging a fee again to recoup some of the cost of the signs and the labor that we go out there and put it out. We've been charging a fee of $35. That's been the same fee since at least 2007. Yamhill County is currently charging $55, and with that, they give the signs to other people, so it's basically a reimbursement of the signs. But in Yamhill County, the landowners actually install that, and they run into the same problem we do. Landowners install them on power poles, and you cannot install them on power poles, etc. So, heck of a great deal right now. We're doing a media blitz. You'll start seeing things on Facebook, the radio, the newspapers. But we want to get that information out free of charge. Contact the road department if you don't want your road sprayed for weeds, noxious weeds. And we also need to keep the edge of the roads clean of debris or of vegetation. Vegetation will grow up right next to the road. The water cannot get off the road. So if you drive down the road, you'll see the edges of the roads are just cracked because the water has no place to go. So we need to take care of that. If you drive down the highways, you'll see where the edge of the roads are free of vegetation. We need to do the same thing here. So any questions?
Thank you, Chris. I don't have questions. Thank you. It's great.
Perfect time for a public service announcement. Appreciate that, Chris.
Yep, excellent, thank you, appreciate that. Okay, moving on to item number 7. This was discussion and consideration of elected officials' compensation board recommendations and adoption of the elected official pay table effective February 1, 2023. We have Jody Wilson, our Human Resources Director, with us today. I believe we're going to move this to just discussion. So Jody, go ahead.
Yes, Commissioners, good morning. We have been working diligently on establishing our compensation philosophy and reviewing that countywide. There was a discussion to also apply that similar compensation philosophy to our elected officials. We went out and we did the work. We started with HR Annie. They did some great initial work to get the compensation philosophy outlined. They did some initial data research, and we found that the data when we received it in November was outdated, excuse me, because it crossed a fiscal year. So many of our benchmarks have a fiscal year salary increase or a cost of living. So Human Resources did go back out to our comparators. We updated that data. to December 2022. We are having a discussion about the compensation philosophy in elected officials today because it was determined very recently that 3 of these comparators had salary increases January 1, 2023. It is very difficult to keep abreast of all of the organizations and their various data points, but generally, we would be aware of that. So the data that we have for the elected officials compensation study was data as of December 1, 2022. So there are 3 comparators that took salary increases or received salary increases January 1, 2023. So today I'd like to just open it up about conversation of the philosophy and look at the commission to give me direction, whether we update the elected officials data for the 2020 January 1, 2023 effective date and send it back, or whether we just like to have a dialogue today.
Thank you, Jody, I appreciate that. And this has been a monumental project to do a compensation study for the county. It's something that, from what I'm understanding as a newish commissioner, has not been done for probably 10 years or more. So it is something that, again, has taken a lot of work, and it is a moving target. So I appreciate you bringing this forward, Jody, for us to determine what is the line that we might draw as to when this compensation study is a snapshot in time. We simply don't have the resources to constantly keep moving every time one of our comparators makes a move. That said, we made a move as of January 1st. We provided an increase for our staff as of January 1st. So anyone who's using us as a comparator is also having the same conversation, I'm sure, to determine what the right timeline is for that snapshot to occur, because at some point a snapshot does have to occur. So we want to make sure that we're confident in our numbers and that we're comfortable with where we're drawing that line. So fellow commissioners, do you have thoughts whether we draw it as of the end of the year as our snapshot and commit to a 2-year cycle where we, each time it's going to be the end of the year? Are we looking at drawing that line annually or every 2-year cycle at the end of January so that we pick up those types of changes? It definitely impacts our staff's workload. It impacts our ability to get compensation studies done in adequate time for bargaining when we have contracts that come up for bargaining. So I think there's a number of factors for us to consider. We don't necessarily have to decide this today. We can take this up as a conversation at a board briefing if we feel there's more, we need more data to do this work. But today, because it was on the agenda, we didn't want to just pull it without some conversation, because we do know that people are concerned and we don't want to leave them wondering.
So, yeah, we're always gonna be playing catch-up. I mean, you cannot have a study that's going to be absolutely up to date. And I'm not exactly sure what you said earlier. So you said that we had comparators through November of 22, and then you updated them to December of 22. But now, of course, as of January 1, there are some other counties that are comparators that did an increase. And then you mentioned that your comparators were as of January 2022. So I'm a little confused with all those dates.
So the review was December of 2022. We were looking at our comparators to update the salary data. And the research was to update work that was done in spring of 2022 by HR Annie.
Okay.
So that might have been the confusing connection.
Okay.
The analysis was to determine whether there was a recommendation to for elected officials for the 5%. We did do a 5% salary adjustment. And so that work was done in December with the idea that that was going to be an analysis for the January 1, 2023 date. So that might be why the dates are a little confusing. When we did work with our comparator counties, They provided that data as of December 1, 2022. And with that December 2022, we found that Wasco, Hood River, and Lincoln did a similar salary adjustment as we did. And that made an impact to what date you were looking at.
And those three counties had an update starting January 1 of 23.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure we're ready to make any kind of a decision today. I think we're gonna need to have further discussions on this, look at what happened and determine exactly what, and so, it is my hope that we don't go another 10 years before we do these comparators. We're gonna have to keep them as up-to-date as possible, but I think we need to recognize too that we're never gonna be absolutely up-to-date. Things are just gonna happen, especially now when inflation has been so high, that's why so many counties and cities are moving pay scales, actually at times when normally they wouldn't. So I think we need to have a conversation about this, and I think a board briefing would be appropriate.
Agreed. Commissioner Bell, may I follow up?
I was going to invite
statement
Commissioner,
for-
yeah, go ahead.
Commissioner Yamamoto, to follow up to your statement about, not waiting another 10 years, I think having a compensation philosophy about how often we look at it. And one of the things in my report, which feels like it's like 12 years old already, even though it was just in December, is to look at our elected officials as well as our non-reps, to have a regular COLA. That cost of living does help keep pace with wages. It might not help with maybe these boomerang salary increases, but it might help keep pace and try to reduce compression as we continue to move through the many years. So thank you for allowing me to share that part of my report.
I appreciate that thought, so thank you so much.
Commissioner Bell? I support holding on this until we're confident in the numbers, and I appreciate the pause and reconsidering, gathering fresh data. I think we'll be able to look at if presumably counties, when they make increases, it would be Jan 1 or July 1, presumably. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think that we'll be able to plan it in the future to coincide with the movement that's happening in our comparator counties. And this is, I don't mind pausing, because I'd much rather pause and get the full scope of the data and move forward knowing that in the moment that we vote, the numbers are accurate. So, yeah, that's me.
So we will take a pause. We will take this up at the board briefing, Jody, and what I would look for is a recommendation from you as our HR professional as to what timelines you would recommend that we put into our compensation philosophy for when we draw that line now and into the future, so that we have something that we know is how we're gonna take our snapshot, so that we can do that at some point, because there is, I think that the piece for me, what's next after the compensation study is a pay equity study, which is a required activity under state law, which will require us to take up the next phase, which will take up probably the next year, of determining what positions within our county have work of comparable character. And this requires a deep dive into each position and what exactly they do to ensure that the pay tables we have created are paying people the same amount if they are doing work of comparable character. So this is another large project that looms for our HR department over this next year that will allow us to take really the next step to say, okay, we did the best we could with our compensation work and we determined where people are in those pay tables. We've done the best we can to try to pay as much as we're able within our budget process. And now we're gonna look and make darn sure everybody's in the right place. So it is also something that has not been completed fully in the way that we'd like to see it. So we hope that, I would say, another year from now, we will be able to look back and say we have a very strong compensation program that is based on market wages to the best of our ability within our budget, where people are placed where they belong in the proper classification based on the work that they do alongside the work of other employees who do work of comparable character. So this is a process, and so I think I'd also like to say this may look a little bit messy at times as we go through this process. It's not an easy one, and so we ask for understanding and grace as we work to get the county's compensation program to where it really feels strong and appropriate, and we are not impacted by things like compression or people that are misclassified. So there's work to be done, and we're doing that work. And I want to thank Jody. Jody's been with us, what is it now, 2.5, 3 months?
3 months and 8 days.
3 months and 8 days. So Jody had jumped into this with both feet. She came into a study that had been done, as she indicated, in the spring for the most part, and needed to be updated immediately to prepare for union bargaining. And she's running full speed ahead, and we appreciate the work that you're doing, Jody, and just look forward to getting your recommendations as our HR expert as to how we create this philosophy in a way that it will work for us today and going forward. Commissioners, any other
Thank you.
comments? Yeah, go ahead, Jody.
I was just going to say I greatly appreciate all the support for the board. When I landed, there was lots of very important work underway. And I got to jump in and, pick up that work, but there was a lot of work that was already started by the board, trying to move these initiatives forward. It is an unprecedented time in HR where you're trying to chase cost of livings that are, if you just follow CPI, was at 1.7.8%. That those are, historically, we've had almost flat CPI. So this is really an unusual time with public employers across the country trying to keep pace with these wages. So again, I really do appreciate all your support and hope that we can come out with a sound policy and practice that allows us to continue to do the care and feeding required of these programs.
Thank you, Jody. Commissioners, any other comment or question before we move on?
Do we want to establish a date by which we hope to address this again?
So we will not have a board briefing next week, and I believe we have at least one executive session on our next board briefing after that, so I would like us to look thoughtfully at our board briefing schedule in order to do that.
Although we do need to understand also that unions want to start negotiating, and we can't hold this off for very long. We can't. We're going to have to make a decision soon.
Yes.
So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jody, appreciate it. Okay, we will move on to item number 8, which is discussion and consideration of a personnel services agreement with Gallup Inc. for employee engagement and workplace survey services. Jody Wilson.
Thank you again, Commission. We have been looking at, again, a number of great projects that were already started before I landed. But looking at an employee engagement survey, the goal is to really look at the county. We're looking at pay studies, we're looking at pay equity, we're trying to find ways to change the culture of the organization to support our longtime staff, as well as create an environment that will attract high-quality candidates that they'll choose to stay for a long period of time. And the Gallup poll is really one of those tools that you're measuring employees' current engagement, and that can help guide and shape future work for how you can make that culture change. I think it's really important before we move forward in any specific areas to make sure we understand where the employees are coming from, have a good communication strategy, and try to work through that. And the Gallup is a great tool for that. You have 12 questions. Those 12 questions are asked by employees. And part of the contract is not only just administering the survey where that data is confidential, where employees feel like they can share, is it brings the report back to leadership, summarizes the data, really provides some impact, and then it also begins to work with managers to create that communication plan for our employees. And so it is not just a survey, but it is also a consulting contract to help guide and shape the conversations following the survey. We measure for year after year. We can even do a 6-month check-in if we elect to do so to see how we're doing.
Thank you, Jody. I appreciate that. We had started with looking at whether we would create a survey prior to Jody coming on board. And we have instead determined that Gallup is a really good approach. So I think this is a good way for us to move forward. Commissioners, other comments, questions?
Gallup is the leader in the field. I worked with the Gallup poll when I worked for the hospital as the director of communications and marketing, and so I worked in the employee engagement campaign and communicating about the Gallup poll. And it was, we did it for a number of years, and it was very effective. It was effective because people were asked the same questions consistently, and we could measure the results. So the first poll was a benchmark, and then thereafter we could measure the results. And then the leadership team came together to review the results and said, okay, you know, our employees are talking about their concerns in this area, and what can we do to address those concerns in this area to help people to feel better about it, and then you can measure the results the next year because people are asked the same questions. So it was very effective. It was an effective tool for employees to be able to communicate, but it was a very effective tool for leaders to be able to adjust what they're doing in order to engage with their employees. And it was, I thought it worked really well. And I saw over the years, our engagement scores change in a positive direction. So I'm very hopeful. I'm glad that you're looking at this tool. I support it.
Thank you. Commissioner?
And I too would support Gallup. I mean, it just makes sense, rather than us try to develop our own survey, use a professional like Gallup to do that. I do have one question and possible concern. When would you plan on doing this Gallup survey?
The Gallup survey, the setup is between 5 to 6 weeks. That is, you know, making sure our employee groups, our emails, all of that data is available to Gallup. They can try to do it sooner, but there are just 12 questions. And so how that data comes back, it was something that, again, it might take a little bit of time. So if it's a setup time for 6 weeks, probably 2 weeks before they'll be able to write the report and provide the feedback. So I'm saying probably about 2 months, probably spring of 2023.
The one concern I have, and I would ask you to ask Gallup this question, is it appropriate for us to put this survey out while we're negotiating with the union? I'm not sure that makes any difference, but I would love a professional group like Gallup to make sure they understand that at this point, it looks like we will be in union negotiations when we're ready to start this poll. And I'd just like to get assurances from them that they don't think that's a problem.
Commissioner, I think that is a fair concern. This Gallup poll was actually a recommendation by our labor attorney, Jenny Marston, in that it's really asking questions that are really about culture and workplace and not necessarily specific working conditions. She has used this tool at the city of Beaverton very successfully, and both her and Stephen Schubach felt this was a very appropriate survey to administer that would actually be more of a set standard versus us creating our own, where, again, maybe we did misstep unintentionally by asking the wrong question. So going to this more set it's a private firm, but the questions are very standard and very common. And so they were much more comfortable with this path, and they didn't feel that there was a concern during labor negotiations.
Right. Perfect. I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, thank you, Jody. I appreciate that. And yeah, I completely agree. You hear us talking about a wage study, you hear us talking about pay equity, you hear us talking about culture change. There's a real desire in this Board of Commissioners to recognize our role as an employer and being a really good employer and having the county be the place where you want to work because it is a great environment. So this is one of those steps that we are taking to really work to do that. COVID was very difficult on all work environments out there. A lot of things have changed, and we really want to engage with our employees in a really positive way to make sure we understand how are they feeling about their workplace, what are the things that are working and not working that we need to be aware of. So this is an opportunity for culture change to make this, the county the employer of choice again. There was a time in the past when getting a county job was considered a really wonderful opportunity. And we're hearing now just that may not be as shiny an object as it was. And we really want to get back to that, where people feel like getting a county job is a really wonderful opportunity. So, thank you, Jody, on that one. Appreciate it. I think we are ready for a motion for that contract.
Madam Chair, consideration of a personal services agreement with Gallup Inc. for employee engagement and workplace survey services. I would move approval.
I second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we've got one more for Jody, and that is discussion and consideration of a group life accidental death and long-term disability insurance proposal from CIS Trust, underwritten by Hartford Life. Jody.
Good morning again. Part of becoming familiar with the county and the benefits that we provide, we had a number of different programs that came from individual contracts. We have contracted with CIS for many years for various benefits, but mostly medical, dental, and vision. CIS Trust is one of the largest trusts to provide benefits for cities and counties in the state of Oregon. They have over 5,000 members in their particular pool, so their buying power is pretty strong. Whereas when we go out and we individually contract for services, we're being rated or purchasing based upon just our employee count, which is just under 300 lives, 275, 254, if you look at actual filled positions. So when we start looking at these particular programs, one of the renewals for the Unum Life and Disability contract comes up March 1st. As we were doing the analysis for that renewal, we looked at the CIS rates and found that they were not only comparable, but they were overall lower cost. They were overall lower cost on the life and disability, which is paid by the employer. So all employees receive a $50,000 life insurance policy, accidental death, as well as a long-term disability policy. And that's something that's paid by the employer. By the time you look at the Unum cost and compare that on an annual basis to what we would pay through the CIS Trust, it's about a $25,000 per year savings. The second part of the Unum renewal is we can purchase as employees voluntary life insurance. And that voluntary life insurance, employees can go out and elect that through payroll deductions. And that payroll deduction just works throughout their career. And that is also significantly lower. I did not calculate the savings for each individual employee, but under each rate tier between the current Unum policy and the Hartford policy, each tier is lower cost for our employees. And so I know we're very busy with work, but the cost savings for the employees to provide life insurance, again, I look at life insurance very similar to retirement. It's one of those stools to financial fitness for our employees. CIS has ensured that they will grandfather any current amounts that employee has applied for under the Unum policy. For employees that haven't participated in a life insurance plan previously, they would provide a new guarantee issue of $100,000 for employees and $20,000 for a spouse. So if you hadn't applied, you can apply now and have these guarantee issues. And so when we look at this, we don't feel like there is a reduction of benefit for our employees. So we are requesting to make that transition either March 1st or April 1st, depending upon how we can work with the unions and ensure that we are in full agreement to move forward and they fully understand the proposals that we're offering.
Thank you, Jody. Questions, commissioners?
I don't have questions on this. I appreciate your work on this and looking for the best benefit and the best, most cost-effective to the county. So I think this is good work.
And I concur, being a past health and life insurance agent in the state of Oregon, when you compare Unum and Hartford, both great companies, both highly rated. So the difference comes down to cost. And for less cost, you get the same benefits from a highly rated company. It's a no-brainer for me.
Thank you. And I agree, and I appreciate your looking at, again, as we've discussed, 3 months and 8 days, I think it was, you've got a lot that you're working on. I appreciate you looking at our benefits to make sure that we are providing the best that we can for our employees at a reasonable cost for the county. So I'm in support. I think we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of a group life, accidental death, and long-term disability insurance proposal from CIS Trust underwritten by Hartford Life, I would move approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Jody.
Thanks, Jody.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we will move on to item number 10. Discussion and consideration of change order number 2 to contract number 5096, contract for general services with Maria's Friendly Housekeeping Janitorial Services at Tillamook County Justice Center Facility. And we have Isabel Gilda, our executive assistant for the BOC, carrying this today. Good morning, Isabel.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record,
Isabel, how are you?
good morning. Before you for consideration is change order number 2, as you announced. Rachel and I have been working on catching up in some of our older expired contracts, and this happens to be one of them. And in order to catch up with the expiration date, this contract calls for 1-year increments. So this change order number 2 will bring this contract current to 2022. And our next board meeting will have change order number 3, which will bring the contract completely current. This Maria's Friendly Housekeeping at the Justice Facility, they love her work and they're anxious to renew her contract.
Excellent. Thank you. Questions or concerns, Commissioner?
I have heard also that the Justice Facility is delighted with Maria's work and I'm grateful that she's willing to continue.
Yep, this is great. Playing catch up is never fun, but appreciate very much all the work that's gone into looking at all these contracts, make sure we're up to date. This is kind of the last remaining, I'm sure, that's out there. So again, Isabel, thank you.
You're welcome.
Absolutely agree. Thank you very much. I think we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of change order number 2 to contract number 5096, contract for general services with Maria's Friendly Housekeeping Janitorial Services at the Tillamook County Justice Center Facility, I would move approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank
you,
you.
Isabel. Okay, moving on to item number 11, discussion and consideration of a letter of support for the Tillamook Bay Watershed Council. And I am listed Darius, but I see that we have Hawken Smith with us, who Hawken is the new board chair for the Tillamook Bay Watershed Council. So I do want to invite him up front. And I'll do just a quick introduction of it, and then Hawken can share with us a little bit more about what's happening in the Watershed Council and answer any questions that commissioners may have. So, as many may know, the Tillamook Bay Watershed Council has not had funding from OWEB for the last couple of years, and they have been working very diligently to meet the requirements to receive a grant from OWEB. There have been a lot of changes at the organization, and I think about a year and a half ago, it was just a year ago, I stepped in as liaison to that board and to work with them and kind of monitor progress as they move forward in getting ready for the grant cycle that is coming up. I believe it's in April, and so Hawken can talk maybe a little bit about that. And they've been doing great work. So I wanted to bring this letter before the commissioners so that we would be able to include it for them with their grant package. Because I believe that they have met the expectations that we had set forth with them. in terms of getting new board members, reviewing their bylaws, working on community partnerships, and the next step is really strategic planning. So I think that they're making the progress we would hope to see. I'm going to turn it over to Hakan, and you can talk a little bit more about, how things are going and what you think we might need to know.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. As Aaron said, Hakan Smith, I'm the chair of the Tillamook Bay Watershed Council. And Aaron did a good introduction. We've been working on recruiting a new board. We've got all new officers. We've been working on updating our bylaws, our policies and procedures, and our strategic action plan, as well as reaching out to community partners to, repair relationships with folks in the community. I think we have a stack of letters of support that I think you've all seen, and I think it shows the diverse range of interests in this community that believe that the watershed councils benefit to the community. We have letters from state and federal organizations, businesses around the community, restoration organizations, and what I've been hearing from everyone who I talk to is they want this to happen and they're supportive of what we're doing. I think that once we have the support of the commissioners and the council capacity grant, I think it's going to be much easier to bring on more partners in our community to be actively involved with the council. I think the added capacity a watershed council can bring to Tillamook County is essential for implementing the large projects across multiple ownerships, as well as the Oregon Coast Coho Conservation Plan and the Coho Strategic Action Plan. It's a vector for bringing outside money into the county for restoration and to organize the local base of volunteers to become involved in projects. We'd love to have the support of the commissioners as we go forward into the council capacity grant application cycle, which is coming up quickly. Mid-March is when the application is due, so we're working on drafting up our application for that, and continuing to give more letters of support as we go through that cycle.
Thank you, Hakan. Commissioners, do you have questions or comments?
I want to thank you for being here with us today, Hakan, and thanks for your work on the Tillamook Bay Watershed Council. I believe in watershed councils. I think they do amazing work, and the Tillamook Bay Watershed Council included has done amazing work. And I think Commissioner Scar mentioned that you've been going through a period of reorganization, which is difficult. It's difficult when any organization or board has to reorganize. And I appreciate that there are a bunch of committed, passionate people on your board who want to move the work forward. And we have a strong watershed council in the south and in the north, and I believe that we will have a strong watershed council in Central County again, and I'm just really grateful for your work.
Thank you.
And I absolutely concur. First of all, I do want to thank Commissioner Scar for taking on this task. You've done great work on this. And Hakan, thank you so much for stepping up. Watershed councils are essential to the way Tillamook County operates. We're a county of vast floodplains and hills and ranges and all these rivers and bays. I was very fortunate when I first became commissioner. I was able to say that when it comes to clean water, habitat restoration, and fish recovery, no Oregon county does this better than Tillamook County. And that was because of our watershed councils, TEP, our Public Works Department, Soil and Water Conservation District. We have so many partners in Tillamook County that do great work to make sure, and people think that agriculture and forestry and fishing practices are a detriment to natural resources. And that's absolutely not the case. That's why we're able to bring commissioners and legislators from across the state to Tillamook. And Tillamook Working Lands and Waters is a great facilitator there. We take them on tours and show them how we do things. And people are amazed, and they take the ideas that they get from a tour in Tillamook County, they take it back to their counties and continue the great work. So we've been without a watershed council now in central Tillamook County for a couple of years. We've missed it dearly. At the same time, there has been a new federal addition, Salmon Superhighway, and they are targeted in certain areas, mostly in South Tillamook County, but they have looked at Central County and are just chomping at the bit to do more work in Central Tillamook County too. So the work that you're doing is going to bring Tillamook County back up to full scale, and there's a lot of work to be done, and with a new watershed council and you leading it, I think this is going to be nothing but great things for Tillamook County. So again, appreciate your work, appreciate your new board members. I'm sure you're still looking for some additional board members.
Yes.
Perfect. So I am absolutely pleased to be able to sign this letter of support to OWEB. I'm sure that they will look at this kindly, knowing that we have work to be done in Central County in particular. And again, you're going to be a great addition. I appreciate everything that you're doing here. And you're not getting paid for this. Our volunteers, again, are terrific in Tillamook County. But the work that you can get done here in Tillamook County, in Central County, is going to be tremendous. So again, thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'd also like to say really quick, to second what you said, I'd like to thank Commissioner Scar, who has been huge in helping our council kind of become organized in the way that, we might not all be very experienced in doing. With her help, as well as other folks like Melissa Graper from DEQ, Christy Foster from the Tillamook Estuaries Partnership, and some of our other specialists. It's without their help, this would have been a real struggle for us, and it's really gotten us on track. And I think we're on a positive trajectory, and looking forward to seeing where it goes.
Perfect.
Thank you, Hawkeye. Yeah, it's been a good process. It's been challenging at times, but I think that it's been the work that the board was needed to do, and we've jumped in with both feet. So appreciate that greatly, and really do look forward to all being funded with the council capacity grant and being able to get back to doing the good work of restoration. So I would be ready for a motion.
Super. Madam Chair, where's my agenda? Sorry. Madam Chair, in consideration of a letter of support for the Tillamook Bay Watershed Council, I would move approval.
A second. I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye.
Enthusiastic aye.
Motion carried. So Hawkeye, thank you so much. We will get that letter signed today and then emailed over to you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you so much for being here. Okay, commissioners, we are on to board concerns. Board concerns?
Good.
I'm going to talk briefly about the governor's emergency order relating to homelessness across the county, because that will come before the commissioners probably next week, where I will not be here. So I want to just sort of set the stage. I think we may have spoken about this at one prior meeting, but the governor in one of this, it was the second emergency order that she signed as governor, was to declare a state of emergency for homelessness in Oregon. And when she did that, she did not include the rural counties of Oregon. It's a construct that HUD has for how you get funding from HUD, and it's called the Rural Oregon Continuum of Care. It includes 16 counties across the state of Oregon that did not meet the metric she had chosen for her state of emergency related to homelessness. There's been some advocacy work done. I would like to thank Representative Gomberg for his work in advocacy with the governor's office to ask how we get rural counties included. Friday afternoon late, we received an email from Representative Gomberg indicating that he had spoken with the governor's office and gave us a couple of metrics that we potentially could meet. One of those metrics was having at least 30 households that were experiencing homelessness as of our point in time count from 2022. That is a metric we meet. It also indicated that of those 30 households, at least 80% needed to be unsheltered. Also a metric that we meet in Tillamook County due to our lack of shelters.
Unfortunate. but
extremely unfortunate that we don't have shelters in Tillamook County, or we have very limited shelters. We have a domestic violence shelter, for those who are aware. We also do have the Helping Hand Shelter, which is a clean and sober reentry shelter. That's the extent of it. So we do meet those metrics. We will be putting those into a letter to the governor asking to be added to the emergency. We will also be declaring a state of emergency in Tillamook County, as is required to request to be in the state emergency. So that project is underway right now, and I bring it up because I won't be here next week when I believe it will be taken up. But we are working closely to make sure that we have all of the things from the governor's office that are needed to get Tillamook County into this state of emergency. And one of the reasons that's so important is the governor has called out $130 million to direct to this state of emergency and other homeless and housing services, but the intention appears to be to use this emergency declaration to move those dollars swiftly into communities. So if we are not included in the declaration, we are also not going to be included in those dollars. So we are doing everything we can to make sure that we receive equal treatment relating to funding from the state to serve those in our community who are experiencing homelessness. It's my just strong belief that it doesn't matter where you are experiencing homelessness in the state of Oregon, it is equally difficult and just a horrible struggle. So we want to make sure that our folks in our community are taken care of, as well as those in the metro area. So I task my fellow commissioners, as soon as we find out from the governor's office for certain what the date is by which we must do that. It's possible we will wait an additional week, but it's just getting everything together. So I wanted to just put that on the table. Thank you. And then I don't know if there are any questions you might have while we're sitting here.
Oh, I just appreciate you weighing in now. I was concerned about Vice Chair Bell and I being here next week and making this decision without you. This is one of your passions, and you've been working on this very hard. So I appreciate very much you bringing this up today. It's going to make our job next week much easier on this issue, knowing that time is of the essence on this. So we'd be more than happy to make sure that try to get this over the finish line.
Perfect.
For you next Wednesday.
Perfect. I appreciate that. Okay, I think that was it for board concerns, unless other commissioners had something in their mind for that. Okay, board announcements. The commissioners will attend the annual National Association of Counties Conference, February 10th, 2023 through February 14th, 2023 in Washington, D.C. The Tillamook County Annual Public Land Sale Auction will be held Monday, February 13th, 2023 at 1 p.m. at the Tillamook County Library main branch in the public meeting room, 1716 3rd Street, Tillamook, Oregon 97141. Registration starts at 12:30 p.m. There are 20 properties for sale. For the list of properties, land sale packets including maps, and auction instructions, please visit the county's website at www.co.tillamook.or.us and click on How Do I/Real Property Sales. There is no community update teleconference scheduled for Tuesday, February 14th, 2023 due to the lack of a quorum. Because the commissioners will be in Washington, D.C., I believe we will be meeting with one of our federal representatives at that time. There is no board briefing scheduled for Wednesday, February 15th, 2023 at 2 p.m. President's Day is an observed holiday for the county and the Oregon State Circuit Court. All county offices in the Tillamook County Courthouse and the Tillamook County Library, administrative offices in the jail and justice facility, Public Works Department, Department of Community Development, Surveyor's Office, and the Health and Human Services Department and clinics, and the State Circuit Court will be closed on Monday, February 20th, 2023. Okay, hearing no other business, we will adjourn this meeting at 10:19.